Welcome back to another episode of the Seafarer Social Podcast. I have a fantastic guest with me today. This is India Sims. India is now an officer. She has just completed a race around the world as a navigator, following only the stars, nothing digital. Just come back from Rome, actually, celebrating that. And she doesn't like me using this, but she is an influencer on TikTok with a large follower base and has created large engagement online. And I'm really excited to speak to her today. So firstly, thank you for joining me, India. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Was that introduction okay?
Yeah, it's all right, it's all right.
Okay, so let's get straight into it. So tell me a little bit about early career life for you. What inspired you originally to get into the world of maritime?
Yeah, so I grew up quite close to the water and I did do a lot of sailing, but it was always just a hobby. Never considered it as a career option, really. And at school, all of my teachers were talking about university, kind of pushing us towards university. My friends were going to university, so I thought I was going to go to university. It was only really when I left school and I was sailing more and more, actually sailing in Portsmouth for a charity here, the Tall Ships Youth Trust, that I actually fell in love with being on the water and thought maybe I could make more of it. So looked into other options and stumbled across the cadetship. So yeah.
But that was completely by your own means. No one ever told you, advised you about this world?
Not at all. I really had no exposure to it. Even when I was looking at maritime careers, I was thinking more sailing related, maybe being an offshore instructor. But telling my parents that I wanted to just go on, disappear off on a yacht, they were a bit nervous about that. So my mum did a lot of research into careers as such, long-term careers, and
I see.
Found it.
And then talk to me about cadetship. So how did that look? How long were you a cadet for?
Yeah.
How was that whole journey?
Yeah, it was the perfect thing for me. It takes roughly 3 years. So I think I started October 2019 and then qualified early 2023. So yeah, just over 3 years, and mixture of college studying. You do lots of different subjects: cargo, maritime law, meteorology, and then also your 12 months sea time split into that. So it was the perfect combination of study and also hands-on practical work, and get some good qualifications out of it. So, and you get paid for it.
Amazing.
Even better.
One of the big things that's hot in the industry and people are talking about is obviously getting more females on board. 2% of the maritime workforce is female, which is just crazy, because it means, and I say this to people all the time, you're missing out on 50% of the world's population. Imagine all the talent that's in there, right? When you were studying, what was it like in terms of were there other females around as well, or was it primarily still very male dominated?
Yeah, it's still very male dominated, and I think companies are recruiting more women, girls, but it is quite a tough environment on ship, obviously.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the girls that start the cadetship maybe don't come back for phase 3, and you're lucky if you have any for phase 5. So at the end, I know some cadets did get back phase, so they didn't just drop out completely, but I had 5 girls in my class out of about 30 people at the start, and then at the end I was the only girl. But a couple had been just back-phased a little bit.
What do you think puts them off? Like, for complete transparency, what do you think puts females off in this industry?
Yeah, obviously it can be quite an isolating environment if you're the only female on board.
Sure.
And you have some sort of issue or whatever. It can be difficult to talk to people.
Yeah.
That is changing, and there are more and more groups where you can reach out to other people. Okay, maybe you've not got a female on ship, but you're in touch with another female seafarer who's also on ship elsewhere or land-based, and the community is growing, so that's really nice. There is more support now. But yeah, it can be tough. It definitely can be tough.
But you're happy you went through it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you think this is going to be the career for the rest of your life in maritime?
Definitely within the maritime industry, yeah, absolutely. And I'm going back to sea very soon, and hopefully I'll be at sea for a while. Obviously the other thing for women is that if you want to settle down and have a family, it can be difficult. Obviously going away for months on end isn't great when you've got young kids.
Sure.
Or kids in general. But that's changing, and there's other support networks that can kind of help that out being developed. So
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot more organisations like Witster, for example. They push a lot of support for females in maritime, and I think more should definitely be done, especially when it comes to going away on maternity leave and things like that. There needs to be support. Okay, let's talk about TikTok. I know that this is like a bit of a blasé topic, but how did it start for you? What was the first video you done, and why did you think it was a cool thing to do?
Well, I didn't. I should say that. I think I had maybe 20 friends on TikTok initially, like people I knew, and would just post, I think, what a lot of people post, just silly videos. And then I posted one video, and I remember I was in my room in my dressing gown, so I really wasn't expecting anyone to see it, but people did see it. And that kind of snowballed. I had agreed that I'd do a fitness challenge, which this is several years ago now, back in lockdown, so I was quite bored and had a lot of time on my hands. And I did a fitness challenge for 30 days, posting consistently, and that grew quite big, and then did another challenge off the back of that, cooking, which grew even more. Gordon Ramsay was tagged in pretty much every one of my videos with people, which was a bit scary. And then it was time for me to go back to sea, and I thought, well, I can't continue the challenges, and I can't film and edit as much as I was. Yeah. So what can I film which fits my schedule, my work now? And it was things to do with shipping and my life, packing, and I think you've seen my ship shop videos and day in the life, stuff like that.
So your original introduction into content creation was actually not necessarily to do with maritime.
Not at all, no.
It was completely opposite. It was COVID. Everyone was messing around at COVID. We had so much time on our hands. But when you went back to sea, you decided to take that, I guess you could say, momentum that you'd built and apply it to your career.
Absolutely. And I think as well, because it was lockdown and I wasn't seeing anyone, I was quite authentic online. I could say whatever, and I didn't have to see anyone in the street. So actually, by the time that I went back to sea and was posting more professional videos, more work-related videos, I already had more of a following, so it felt justified that I could be filming and talking and doing whatever.
And has that audience changed from maybe sort of like a generalist content consumer to a more specific maritime interested consumer?
Largely my audience is still the same. I had more female followers. I think it was like 95% were women initially. It's still 70% female women, and it's still the younger bracket. The youngest bracket TikTok shows now is 18. And the bulk of my followers are between 18 and 25, which is really good to see. But it's always been quite a young audience and female, which is really nice.
But I think what's really cool is that you gained attention on a larger scale based on something that wasn't necessarily about maritime. So people that maybe didn't know anything about the industry and was just interested in, like you said, the fitness challenge, the cooking challenges. But then you introduced them to the industry. And I think that's quite cool because actually so many organisations out there are really struggling to do just that. Yeah. And maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe you relate to the individual on something that's slightly different and then introduce them later on.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, a lot of people thought that I was a chef, actually. So when I started posting ship videos, but that makes me think they didn't actually watch the cooking videos because most were a complete disaster. But it was more, I think people just liked the energy, and it was quite fast-paced editing, and it was a laugh. It was a joke originally for me, TikTok, and it's changed into something a little bit more serious, but people liked the fun side of it. So it's kind of trying to merge a serious work environment with a slightly more light-hearted
How do you think that the industry can capitalise on a bigger scale using social media to be able to communicate to the next generation and specifically improve things like diversity, recruitment, retention, get more people involved? How do you think they could capitalise that on a larger scale?
Yeah, I think having more influencers, encouraging people to film a little bit more, or even posting photos on Instagram or whatever, is a really good way to reach out to people. I know companies are using X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, But really, the younger generation aren't on there. They're not checking tweets and looking at pictures of ships as such. We see ships in our day-to-day, but we don't see the people doing those jobs. We don't see the personalities, and people can't relate to the job itself because they think, oh, it's not for me, whatever. But if they see someone that's really similar to them, 23, 24-year-old girl, that's, similar to them in their normal day-to-day life, then maybe they could do something on ship. There's so many different roles as well, so it's just more, there's a lot of information that can be shared online on social media, and I think companies should utilize that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm trying to push a lot more is instead of continuously posting stuff about black tie dinners and these corporate events, we should really be focusing on actually value providing content.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's so much to be shared, and I think it will change over time. There are policies where you can't use your phone on the bridge, and it's restricted, so it can be difficult, but I think there's ways around that, and it's a useful tool for recruitment.
For sure. So I know that recently you just came back from Rome. It looks really cool, by the way. And the reason why you're there is because you were celebrating the Ocean Globe race, am I right?
Yes.
Tell us about the Ocean Globe race. From what I've seen, your role was navigator, and there was no digital navigation provider whatsoever. It was completely following the stars, which just sounds amazing. Please tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so sailing nowadays, recreational sailing, and the professional sailors that go off and do offshore racing, it's all very high-tech equipment, very fast boats, and it's really inaccessible to anyone that just wants a challenge, wants to go and do something a bit different. So the Ocean Globe race was the 50th anniversary of the first ever Whitbread race, which was the first ever around the world yacht race, crewed yacht race. So we sailed it in the same style, did the same route, 27,500 miles around the world. And we did it in old boats, so pre-1988 design with no modern electronics, no phones, laptops. If we wanted to listen to music, we had to listen to cassette tapes. So it was really trying to take us back to 1973,
And how long did this go on for?
So start to finish was about 7.5 months. We had 3 stopovers, one in Cape Town, then Auckland, then Uruguay. Did the 3 Great Capes as well, which was nice, Cape Horn, and then back to the UK. But about 7.5 months start to finish.
Do you think you'll do something like that again?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Were you able to do any vlogging out there or not? Or?
Yeah, we were allowed cameras. We had to get them approved, but we were allowed cameras to document it. They're making a documentary about it. And
I see. Okay, nice.
Other boats they had like professional film crew basically. So there will be more content coming from the race.
Cool.
So that was the only thing that was a little bit different to 1973.
What was your crew like?
Yeah, so we actually did it slightly differently to most other crews. We decided to create a company and then all buy shares in the company.
Okay.
So we had 11 people on the team, 10 of us were the shareholders, and we did the whole race, start to finish, whereas most other boats swapped crew out. So only a small handful of people actually did the whole route round, whereas pretty much the whole of my team did the whole thing,
from
which
the
is
offset.
nice. From the offset, yeah.
Wow.
Bit of a risk, because the skipper knew us all kind of individually. I actually didn't know the skipper beforehand, but I was recommended to him via someone else. So I didn't know anyone on the team, but I couldn't turn down the opportunity. So yeah, I agreed. And we did a transatlantic early last year. All got along really well, so that was it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What was the sort of key things that you learned from that experience in terms of stuff that you can apply to maybe your professional life in the future?
Yeah, I've definitely learned that no matter how tired, no matter how much I want to quit, I actually still physically can push on.
Yeah.
And when you have to do something, there's, in that situation, there's no just stopping.
Yeah.
It is almost do or die. And for me, so being in charge of the navigation, if I just decide to take a day off, makes my life harder down the line. I've got to do even more work to figure out where we are, whatever. So I definitely proved that I'm more capable of things than I maybe thought I was before, and up for taking on the challenge. Yeah.
Amazing. I think one of the things that I think is so awesome about people that work in maritime is very often there'll be times in their life where perhaps they want to come ashore, they want to work ashore, maybe they even want to change industry. But sometimes people in maritime, they freak out, you know, I don't know anything else but maritime. But actually, given the things that you learn while you're away, there's so many employers out there that find those skills so desirable.
Yeah,
it's so
the
difficult
teamwork,
to
the working in such a confined environment, especially obviously for the race, we were all pretty much living on top of each other. But again, on a ship or oil rig or whatever, you're in confined quarters, so just living in those spaces and dealing with people on a day-to-day, sort of no escape. You have to find ways to work with different people and get around.
but still get stuff done.
And still get stuff done, exactly that.
Which I think is just so valuable. Well, thank you very much
you.
for taking the time to talk to me.
No,
Appreciate it, India. Nice
I
one.
appreciate it.
Where can people follow you on TikTok if they want to find you?
Yeah, so my username is indiarose.ocean, and I'm on Instagram as well.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.